The first time I planned my fiancée's funeral was a Tuesday, and she was laughing, her head thrown back, a sound I once thought was the melody my life had been missing. The irony was so thick I could taste it, a bitter paste on my tongue. Here she was, vibrant and breathtakingly alive, curled on our plush sofa, telling me a hilarious story about a mishap at her yoga studio. Sunlight streamed through the bay window, catching the diamond on her left hand, making it sparkle with a promise it no longer held. Every laugh line around her eyes, every graceful gesture of her hands, was a detail I was mentally cataloging, not for our wedding album, but for her eulogy. Her name was Ilara, and for 6 years, she had been my universe. I, Leo, a man who found comfort in the logical, predictable patterns of code and architecture, had been utterly undone by her chaotic, beautiful art. She was a splash of vibrant color on the gray canvas of my existence. I loved her with a ferocity that scared me, a love that built its foundation on the bedrock of complete and utter trust. That foundation had turned to quicksand 2 weeks ago. It started with a scent, not her usual jasmine and vanilla, but something foreign, musky, and expensive. A cologne clinging to the collar of her blouse. A late meeting, she'd said. A client who smoked. I, the fool, nodded and buried the nascent doubt under a mountain of devotion. Then came the phone. She, who once left her phone anywhere, now guarded it like a state secret. It was always face down, always on silent. A text message lit up her screen one night as she dozed on my shoulder. Can't stop thinking about today. You're a addiction, E. The sender was saved as Yoga Client Mara. My blood, which had been warm with the contentment of holding her, turned to ice. Mara, a name she'd mentioned, a new, wealthy client who bought private sessions in bulk. A client who, according to Ilara's earlier stories, was a woman. A lie so effortless, so perfectly constructed, it was more terrifying than the infidelity itself. The logical part of my brain, the part that designed complex software systems, now designed a plan for discovery. I became a ghost in my own home, a silent observer of my own crumbling life. I installed a keylogger on our shared laptop. I feigned illness to stay home and watch her leave, not for the yoga studio, but for a boutique hotel across town. The digital breadcrumbs led me to a man named Julian Thorne, a gallery owner. Charismatic, wealthy, with the kind of rugged, careless beauty that comes from never having to try too hard. His Instagram was a curated museum of his perfect life. Art openings, sailing trips, philanthropic galas. And in the background of several recent photos, sometimes just a blurry figure, sometimes a hand on his arm, was my Ilara, our Ilara. The evidence was a symphony of betrayal. Each note a hammer blow to my heart. Hotel receipts, deleted text logs recovered, a secret email account. They'd been seeing each other for 5 months. 5 months. She had been planning our wedding, tasting cakes, choosing floral arrangements with my mother, all while lying in his bed. The initial pain was a physical thing, a white-hot knife twisting in my gut. It was followed by a grief so profound I couldn't breathe, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was a hollow man, going through the motions of life, screaming on the inside. But then, something else emerged from the ashes of my devastation. A cold, calm, terrifying clarity. Anger would be too simple. A confrontation, a screaming match, throwing her out, it was what she might expect. It was messy, undignified. It would make me the villain, the unstable, jealous fiancé. She would run to Julian, and they would paint me as the obstacle to their great love story. No, she didn't get to be the victim. She didn't get to walk away unscathed, her conscience clean, her life seamlessly transitioning from one man to the next. She needed to understand the weight of what she had done. She needed to feel a fraction of the emptiness she had created in me. She needed a lesson, not in revenge, but in consequence. And so, the plan was born. Not a plan of violence, but of psychological precision. I would give her exactly what she thought she wanted. Freedom. But I would frame it in a way that would haunt her for the rest of her life. I would give her a grief from which she could never truly recover. I would give her my death. The first step was the diagnosis, a rare, inoperable, and swiftly progressing neurological condition. I spent days researching, compiling medical jargon, Symptoms, fatigue, headaches, subtle tremors in my hand that I could easily fake. I found a doctor's letterhead template online and crafted a devastating prognosis. 6 months, maybe less. The decline would be rapid. I began the performance. It started with a slight stumble as we walked to dinner. "I'm just tired, darling," I'd say, forcing a weak smile. Then, the headaches. I'd retreat to a dark room, and she'd bring me tea, her face a mask of concern. I saw the guilt warring with her impatience. She was trapped. Her exit affair had suddenly become a prison of obligation. I lost weight, deliberately. I let my beard grow out, shadows appearing under my eyes from genuine stress-induced insomnia. The transformation was shockingly effective. I looked ill. "Leo, you have to see a doctor," Alara pleaded one night, her hand on my fevered brow, a result of holding a hot washcloth to my skin moments before. "I did," I whispered, my voice hoarse with manufactured weakness. I let a single, real tear track down my cheek. A tear for the love we had, for the man I was before I knew her capacity for cruelty. I handed her the forged letter. I watched her read it. I saw the color drain from her face. Her hands trembled. Her breath hitched. "No," she whispered, a broken sound. "No, this can't be. There has to be another opinion. We'll go to the Mayo Clinic anywhere." "It's over, Alara," I said, my voice flat, final. "They're certain." She collapsed onto the floor beside my chair, sobbing, clutching my legs. "I can't lose you, Leo. I can't. I won't let you go." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She was already halfway out the door. Now, I was holding it open for her, but she couldn't walk through it, not without looking like a monster. This was the beautiful, terrible crux of my plan. She was stuck. Her affair with Julian became strained, fraught with my impending death. He grew impatient. I'd hear her on the balcony, her voice hushed and tense. "Not now, Julian. He's sick. Don't you understand? He's dying." I was her perfect, tragic alibi. I leaned into the role of the dying man. I became sweet, nostalgic, loving. I'd hold her hand and talk about our past, our first date, the time we got caught in the rain in Paris, the way I knew I wanted to marry her the moment I saw her. I was writing my own eulogy through our shared memories, each one a landmine I was planting in her future. The guilt was eating her alive. She stopped wearing makeup. Her laughter, once so frequent, disappeared. She jumped every time the phone rang. She was a ghost haunting our home, tethered to a man she had betrayed and was now forced to watch disintegrate. I hired an actor, an older, distinguished-looking man I found through a niche service, to play Dr. Evans. He came to our apartment for a consultation, his manner grave and compassionate. He spoke of experimental treatments with low success rates, of palliative care, of making me comfortable. Alara sat rigidly, her knuckles white as she gripped the armrest. She believed every word. The plan was proceeding with flawless, horrifying precision. I began to deteriorate more rapidly. I used a wheelchair for outings. I spoke slower. I'd lose my train of thought mid-sentence. I was saying goodbye, piece by piece. All the while, I was making real preparations. I liquidated assets quietly. I wrote a new will, leaving everything to a charitable trust for art therapy, a final twist of the knife that would make her question if I ever truly knew her at all. I arranged for a cremation service with specific, unbreakable instructions. No service, no viewing, ashes to be scattered at sea by a discreet company. There would be no body, no tangible proof. I booked a one-way ticket to a remote coastal town in another country. I rented a small, secluded house under a new name. My new life was a blank page, waiting. The final act was the hardest. I had to say goodbye to my parents, my sister. I told them the same story. The grief in their eyes was real, a searing pain that almost made me abort the entire insane plan. I held my sobbing mother, my stoic father crumbling before me, and I felt like the most monstrous human being alive. But the wheels were in motion. To stop now would be to expose a truth more cruel than my fictional death. I left them with the promise to fight, my heart shattering into a million pieces. The appointed day arrived. A cold, gray morning in October. I staged a fall in the bathroom, a loud crash. Alara came running. I lay on the floor, perfectly still, my breathing shallow. I had taken a mild sedative to slow my pulse. "Leo. Oh my God, Leo," she screamed, cradling my head. I fluttered my eyes open. "Ilara." I breathed, my voice a ragged whisper. "It's time." No, hang on. I'm calling an ambulance." "No," I said, gripping her hand with a surprising strength. "No hospitals. Just you. Please, stay with me." She wept, nodding, holding me. This was it. The culmination of my grand, twisted design. I was to die in her arms, leaving her with the ultimate unfixable consequence of her betrayal. I looked into her eyes. Those beautiful, lying eyes now swimming in genuine, desperate tears. I was about to deliver my final line to close this dark play. And then she spoke. "I'm so sorry, Leo," she choked out, her body racked with sobs. "I'm so sorry. You can't go. You can't leave me with this. I need to tell you. I need you to know." She was breaking. This was more than grief. This was a confession brewing. A part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to hear it. The other part, the architect of this ruin, dreaded it. I've been so selfish," she cried, her words tumbling out in a torrent of guilt. "With the wedding planning, the stress. I've been distant. I've been a terrible partner to you when you needed me most. And there's more." I stayed silent, playing the dying man, my heart hammering against my ribs. She took a ragged breath. "A few months ago, I was weak. I was scared. I thought you were pulling away. I thought the spark was gone. I met someone. Nothing happened." She lied, the habit so ingrained even now. Just lunches, talks. It was stupid. A moment of insanity. I ended it, Leo. I swear I ended it weeks ago. The guilt was killing me. And then you got sick, and God, this is my punishment. This is my fault. I did this to you. My stress, my negativity. I gave you this illness. The absurdity of her logic was staggering. She was rewriting history, minimizing the affair into a lunch, absolving herself by connecting her betrayal to my fictional disease. It was the ultimate narcissistic cope. And yet, the raw, unfiltered pain in her voice was real. She wasn't sorry for cheating. She was sorry for getting caught by the universe. She was sorry for the inconvenient timing. My death was about her guilt, her punishment. Any last, lingering shred of doubt I had about my plan evaporated. This wasn't a woman capable of the profound remorse I had wanted to elicit. This was a child, caught with her hand in the cookie jar, upset about the scolding, not the theft. I closed my eyes, not needing to act the part anymore. I was exhausted. "I know," I whispered. She froze. "What? What did you say?" "I know everything," I breathed, putting every ounce of my dying performance into it. "Julian, the hotel, the 5 months." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Her grip on my hand went slack. Her tears stopped. The air left her lungs in a horrified gasp. You knew?" The words were barely audible. "I loved you enough to let you go," I said, each word a labored effort. "I didn't want to be your burden, my last gift, your freedom." It was the masterpiece of my deception, the ultimate act of martyrdom. I was granting her freedom from our engagement and from the guilt of my death, all while ensuring that freedom would be a life sentence in a prison of her own making. She would never be free of this. Never. I let my body go limp. I slowed my breathing until it was almost imperceptible. I focused on the feel of the cold tile against my cheek, the sound of her ragged, horrified breathing. "Leo? Leo! No, please! Don't you dare! Don't you dare leave me like this! You can't! I love you! I only ever loved you!" Her screams were the last thing I heard as I retreated deep within myself. I felt her shaking me, slapping my face, then collapsing on my chest, her body heavying with a grief so absolute it felt like a physical force. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, playing a corpse, while the woman I had loved mourned me. It was the most emotionally grueling experience of my life. I felt nothing. I felt everything. Eventually, her sobs subsided into shaky, hiccuping breaths. She pulled away. I heard the rustle of her clothes as she stood on unsteady legs. I heard her pick up the phone. Her voice was hollow, robotic, as she called the number for the end-of-life service I had prearranged. "Yes, it's time. Please come." The rest was a blur. 2 somber men arrived. They were efficient, respectful. They asked her if she wanted a moment. She said no, her voice breaking. They lifted me onto a gurney. I focused on being dead weight, on keeping my breathing non-existent. They covered me with a sheet. The world went dark and muffled. I was loaded into a vehicle. The drive was silent. I waited, every muscle screaming with tension, until I felt we were far from the apartment. Then, I sat up, pulling the sheet from my face. The driver, a man named Carl, who I had paid a small fortune for his discretion, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Rough one, Mr. Reed?" he asked, using my new name. I didn't answer. I just stared out the window at the city I was leaving behind. The city that contained my old life, my grieving family, and Alara, now alone with a truth more devastating than any lie. I made it to the coastal town. The house was exactly as described. Small, whitewashed, with a view of the relentless, gray sea. The silence was deafening. I had wanted peace. I had gotten emptiness. The first few weeks were a numbing cycle of basic survival. I avoided news. I didn't go online. I was a ghost. My only contact was with a private mailbox service that forwarded my new official documents, passport, driver's license, all in the name of Leo Reed. The old Leo was legally dead. The certificate had been issued. The weight of what I had done began to press down on me, heavier than any grief. I had not just punished Alara. I had annihilated myself. I had murdered the son my parents loved. I had erased the brother my sister relied on. My own grief, for the life I lost and the man I had been forced to become, was a constant, aching presence. One rainy afternoon, unable to bear the silence any longer, I broke my own rule. I went to a small internet cafe in the next town over, my hands trembling as I logged into a secure, anonymous server. I Googled my own name, Leo Vance, obituary. There it was, a short, heartbreaking notice from my parents. Beloved son and brother, taken too soon. The comments were a stream of condolences. I felt physically sick. I took a deep breath and searched for Alara. I found her Instagram. It was set to private. Her profile picture was black. My heart thudded painfully. I searched for Julian Thorne. His profile was public. There were photos from a recent gallery opening. He was smiling, a glass of champagne in his hand, his arm around a woman. It wasn't Alara. Scrolling back through his feed, I found it. A post from 2 months ago. A grainy black and white photo of a stormy sea. The caption was a quote, "Some ships are designed to sink. Forgive them. They know not the depth of the water they were meant to sail." It felt like a direct message, an admission, a eulogy for their affair, sunk by the weight of my death. I finally found a public article in a society blog. Gallery owner Julian Thorne and rising yoga influencer Alara Vance call it quits. The article was scant on details, only mentioning they had parted ways amicably some time ago. Rising yoga influencer. The title made me sick. She was using my death, my name, to build her brand. My rage, which had sustained me for months, was gone. In its place was a vast, weary sadness. I kept digging, a masochistic need driving me to see the full extent of the fallout. I found a local news piece from my hometown. Community mourns local man. There was a picture of my parents leaving our church, my father's arm around my mother, her face a mask of utter desolation. My sister was beside them, her eyes red, raw. I slammed the laptop shut, stumbling out of the cafe into the rain. I vomited in the gutter, heaving until there was nothing left. I had done this, to them, to her, to myself. My grand lesson had become a nuclear bomb, and the radiation was poisoning everyone it had touched, especially me. Months bled into a year. I tried to build a life. Leo Reed took painting classes. He went fishing. He volunteered at a local library. But he was a shell. He was haunted. I'd see a woman with Alara's hair color and my breath would catch. I'd hear a laugh like hers and I'd have to leave the room. The lesson was over. But there was no test, no grade, just a permanent failing mark on my soul. On the anniversary of my death, I couldn't stay away. It was a compulsion, a need to see the grave of the man I had been. I flew back, disguised with a beard, glasses, a different way of carrying myself. I was a tourist visiting my own past. The cemetery was quiet. I found the headstone easily. Leo Vance, beloved son, brother, and fiancé. A light extinguished too soon. There were fresh flowers there, lilies, her favorite. My throat tightened. I heard a soft footstep on the grass behind me. I didn't need to turn. I knew it was her. The connection that had once bound us, now twisted and mangled, pulled taut. I turned slowly. She was thinner, paler, dressed in a simple black dress. She looked a decade older. The vibrant light in her eyes was utterly gone. In its place was a hollow, perpetual sorrow. She was a living ghost. She looked at me, and for a terrifying second, I thought she saw through my disguise. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of confused recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by the polite, distant sadness one shows a stranger at a graveside. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice lower, rougher than it used to be. "I didn't mean to intrude." She offered a faint, sad smile. "It's okay. He would have liked that." People remembering him. We stood in silence for a moment. Two strangers bound by a secret only one of us knew. "He must have been very loved," I said, the words ash in my mouth. She nodded, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "He was. More than he knew. More than I ever knew how to show him." She looked at the headstone, her expression one of such profound and permanent regret that it finally, truly, broke me. "I failed him," she whispered, more to the stone than to me, in every way that mattered. She turned and walked away, her figure growing smaller and smaller until she disappeared between the rows of the dead. I looked down at the cold granite, my name etched forever in stone. I had wanted to teach her about loss. I had wanted her to feel the depth of my pain. I had succeeded, and as I stood there, alive at my own grave, I understood the final, devastating twist of my own plan. The lesson was never for her. It was for me. I had learned that some betrayals carve holes in us so deep that we become them, that in trying to bury my pain, I had buried myself alive. And that the most perfect revenge is not a life of freedom for you, but a life of endless, silent penance for me, haunted by the ghost of the woman I loved and the man I used to be.